A few weeks back, I made a video talking about what I thought was the best map in the original Star Wars Battlefront. And while many of you agreed with that conclusion, it did start a conversation about personal favorites and other great maps within the Battlefront series. So I asked you guys what other maps you'd like me to talk about, which brings us to today's chosen subject, Rhen Var. A snowy planet, home to ruins and mystery, Rhen Var houses two levels, Rhen Var Harbor and Rhen Var Citadel. Instead of just looking at one, I decided I wanted to take a look at both maps together. It's also kind of going to be a test to see if it's worth talking about more than one map per video if I decide to keep this series up. Speaking of, if you would like me to continue making more videos like this, then leave a comment and let me know what other maps you want me to talk about. Also, I've never had a like goal on a video before, but let's say if this video gets 500 likes, I will continue this series. That's really not a whole lot to ask for. But if I hit that goal, then I will eventually look at every single map in this game. Eventually. I do have a life outside of this after all. Last time I created a broad list of things that I believe are needed to make the ideal Battlefront map. Those were an environment that makes you feel like you're in the middle of a massive battlefield, multiple ways to take part in said battle, and lastly, does the map feel like a location from Star Wars? Again, naming every element that goes into making a good level is difficult and probably a little too subjective to truly nail down. But this list covers what I think are the most important aspects. And once again, I got my footage from playing on both the original Xbox version of the game as well as the Classic Collection, so that will explain any visual discrepancies between the footage. Now, I actually want to start off by talking about that last point on the list there. Whether or not these maps feel like a Star Wars location. Now, nearly every map in both classic Battlefront games is based either directly off of a location seen in the films, or at least based off a planet seen. Rhen Var, however, is the exception, being the only planet across both games to not make an appearance in any of the films, not even getting a mention. So, where does this icy world come from? Well, what if I told you it actually predates the entirety of the prequel trilogy of Star Wars? In a design sense, Rhen Var's aesthetic comes from early Ralph McQuarrie concept arts for the planet Hoth. But as an actual location, Rhen Var first appeared in the Tales of the Jedi comic book series, released in 1997, which tells a story from the Old Republic following a Jedi-turned-Sith named Ulic Queldroma. However, a more prominent appearance, and what likely led to its addition in this game, was in Star Wars The Clone Wars, Pandemic's previous Star Wars game in 2002, before the release of Battlefront. This close connection to the studio is almost certainly why this planet found itself within this game. Now, like many worlds in the original Battlefront, Rhen Var has two maps to choose from, the Harbor and the Citadel. We'll be looking at both, but let's start with Rhen Var Harbor. When first loading up the map... Actually, wait a minute. I have no idea how I forgot to talk about this last time, but I'm not making the same mistake twice. When first loading in, you're going to hear that sweet, sweet loading screen sound. Immaculate. Getting to the planet itself, Harbor is a deceptively sized map. It consists of several structures amidst a large frozen expanse at the foot of a mountain. The two halves of the map are divided by a jut, which you are only able to reach the opposite side of by either crossing the frozen waste or by traversing the caves. While most maps in this game are set up like a standard battle with both teams on the offensive, there are a few that are designed to resemble something closer to a siege, with one side defending while the other side attacks. And that is precisely how Rhen Var Harbor is set up. The team on the right side of the map starts out in the Fortress and Citadel, two stronghold-like structures with gun turret emplacements. On the left side of the map is the Western LZ, a more sparse building which seems to be working as a temporary staging ground for an assault on the castle. It has access to the ice caves, where forces can go for a flank, but it mainly seems to serve as a drop-off point for vehicles such as tanks and, well, to put it bluntly, even bigger tanks. The Empire and the Republic always spawn on this side of the map in their respective eras. They also get access to their faction's unique Command Walker, a mobile tank doubling as a command post. Now, while we're on the topic of factions, I want to make a quick shorthand when referring to both sides. Unless I'm forgetting something, the Empire and the Republic always share command post, and the Rebel Alliance and the CIS also always share command post. With this being the case, in order to save me having to refer to both units each time, I'm just going to call the Empire and Clones Team 1, and the Droids and Rebels Team 2. Since the Clones and the Imps are always the first option on the Team Select screen, and always have the green command post on these map overlays I use. Now getting back to the map itself, there is a single uncontested command post called the Lighthouse. Being on the right side of the map, Team 2 is usually the side to capture this point first. And they'll need it. Team 1's Command Walker starts roughly halfway between the ice fields, so it's not long before it reaches the fortress area. The Command Walker is a prime example of trade-offs. It hits with immense force, with cannons powerful enough to send most units flying, but it also has a slower rate of fire. It moves incredibly slowly, but it can function as a spawn point in the middle of the action so your allies can get right into the fight. It is a massive and easy target to hit, but it has great survivability and can destroy almost anything that can attack it in a single blast. The Walker is powerful, but not invincible. To counteract the Walker, along with the two smaller tanks that usually accompany it, Team 2 has a highly defensible position. Assuming they have captured the lighthouse, the first two structures the Walker must go past are armed with several defense turrets, and some decent cover that can protect you from the right angle. In addition to this, tanks will spawn inside the courtyard of the Citadel, along with a few last turrets on the back wall. Now individually, a Walker could easily destroy any of these, but when all these aspects come together, the Command Walker will find itself pelted from all sides, leading to a slow but inevitable end. That also allows the Heavy class to shine, his rocket launchers finding easy targets on either the main Walker or enemy tanks. One potential downside is how the launcher's autolock feature may struggle to choose a target if too many vehicles are in the same area. This all comes together to create an epic feeling while fighting in the harbor. A massive siege weapon moving in on a castle loaded with defenses. It gives you that special brand of fighting often found in a fantasy setting, just now with a sci-fi twist. I also want to spend some time talking about how the visuals play a part on the Battlefront. Now, due to hardware limitations, many older games had a limited draw distance, only being able to properly display so much of an area at a time. The main technique used to disguise this phenomena was a hazy fog that would obscure objects until you were close enough to them. Now, I am far from the first person to point this out, but Rhen Var Harbor is a prime example of how this limitation becomes a positive, adding ambience to the map. Particularly noticeable on Team 1's side, the bottom portion of the map seems to stretch forever into a gray nothingness. It's like you're in the middle of a snowstorm or an early fog still hovering over the dim morning. This creates an artificial sense of scale, making a small part of the map feel frighteningly massive. The draw distance also comes into play while approaching the city. I have a lot of experience with small-time theater due to my time in college and working as a teacher. A big part of any medium of entertainment is spectacle. Something that grabs the audience's attention and keeps them engaged. And when you can't afford real spectacle, you artificially create one using visual trickery. While in the Walker or approaching the city, the harbor is obscured, only slowly being revealed as you get nearer, creating a false sense of distance. When it does begin to materialize, it does not do so all at once. The fortress seems to span deep into the unseeable valley. And then once inside, the various buildings are almost claustrophobically close, creating a cramped and disorienting illusion as you struggle to grasp the scope of your surroundings. All of this comes together to take one of the smaller maps in this game and make it feel gigantic. Now, this illusion is broken, however, on the Classic Collection version of the map. Being updated for more powerful hardware, the limiting fog is nowhere to be seen. What can be seen is, well, literally everything else, as the true small scope of this map is revealed. Now, don't get me wrong, the old ruins still loom large overhead, but part of that enigmatic ambiance is gone as the hazy dark morning is traded for a clear sunny day. That being said, I don't want to completely write off the Classic Collection's visual choices. To add more visual flair, the once flat plain has had small mounds and snow-capped hills scattered around it. And beyond them, the infinite flatness is still visible, now with the feeling of staring across an ocean with no opposite shore. But I've come this far and I haven't even talked about the most notable aspect of this map, the ice caves. Who needs tanks and a direct assault when you can go straight through the mountain and just flank the enemy? The tunnel begins right by the western LZ, and travels through a cave made of ice, spitting you out right into the Citadel courtyard. A command post also sits about halfway through the cave, getting you into the action sooner. The caves offer an equally beautiful and mysterious sight, with large frozen pillars, but also having a few instances of running water, such as this small cascade right before a winding ice causeway. Now that's about all there is visually for the ice caves, but their beauty is in that simplicity. And while they may also feel large while walking through them, it's a relatively small and straightforward path, just like the rest of this map. On the gameplay side of things, this creates a major area of conflict right here at the mouth of the cave, as Team 1 tries to push out, and Team 2 pushes right back. It's a major bottleneck for both sides, very similar to the bridges seen on Bespin, but requiring a more direct approach. Your only option is to push forward. Now, some of the more close-range fighters, such as the Rebel Pilot, Wookiee Warrior, and Dark Trooper, can dominate in these caves due to the heavy spread on their weapons. Heavy units can also offer some defense, placing mines to keep the enemy out. Even snipers can call in an orbital strike right at the entrance and clear it out as well. Now, another great idea you can utilize to clear out the caves: diverting a tank away from the walker and using it to clear out the mouth of the cave. It's very effective, even if some allies might get caught in the crossfire. But, of course, there is one unit who can completely control the ice caves. Just like the hallways of Bespin, the Droideka with its powerful shields and rapid-fire blasters can make quick work of anyone inside these icy halls. In fact, they are so effective that while playing as the Separatist, I managed to completely push through the ice caves and capture the LZ with just a handful of Droidekas. If you do manage to escape the caves, the last area of note is this inner courtyard. It's a large open field where tanks spawn and turrets have a clear shot at you. This means that even if Team 1 does manage to break in, they will have a very hard time taking any of the command posts Team 2 starts with. In fact, on each of my fights on this map, I found it very difficult to capture any command post, with the exception of the lighthouse. Now, due to your allies' less than stellar AI, you'll be virtually alone when trying to capture the fortress or the citadel, all while more enemy units spawn in around you. I even tried taking a tank behind enemy lines to try and catch them while the enemy was occupied with other fronts. Now, it is worth noting that I am playing against bots, and even on hard difficulty, the game will never play the same way as it does against human opponents. But ultimately, the map does its job serving as a massive battleground, simulating a defensive battle over an old fort. And what exactly is this map in-universe? Well, similar to with Bespin platforms, I always assumed the map was one thing, that being an old outpost likely used for landing ships, hence the nickname Harbor. But what if it is a literal harbor? There is a lighthouse, after all, and large, flat stretches of land are hard to come by, unless, of course, it's a frozen body of water. Perhaps this is some ancient seaport now long abandoned. Even the mountain I keep referring to probably isn't a mountain at all. Mountains aren't filled with ice, but glaciers are. This large backdrop with a cave system running through it may be nothing more than an iceberg overlooking a frozen sea and the ancient harbor that once operated here. Not too far away on the same planet is the second map we will be looking at, Rhen Var Citadel. It's another map that, size-wise, is actually pretty small, but it is perhaps the most densely packed map in this game. Unlike most other levels in this game, that start with both teams owning most, if not all, command posts, the Citadel starts with each side having a single spawn point, and 5 command posts up for capture. Team 1 again starts on the upper left-hand side of the map with the observatory, and Team 2 begins in the bottom right-hand corner with the courtyard. Logically, each team typically is going to capture the command post on their half of the map. But I noticed that it's not always consistent which ones get captured first. And even then, as the game progresses, the command posts tend to change hands constantly. But more on that in a bit. Unlike the other 2 maps we've covered so far, Citadel is an entirely infantry-based experience. It has no vehicles or starfighters. It does technically have these gun turrets, but I don't really put them in the same category. Plus, I never really use them. In my mind, they make you far too easy of a target. Although they can hit hard. But as I was saying, you only have access to ground forces. And that's really all that is needed here due to the design of this fortress. As the name implies, Citadel is an ancient structure sitting atop a mountain. The Citadel consists of several passageways, ramparts, and stairwells snaking around the castle. The western half of the map especially is full of numerous paths. I mentioned earlier that this map is densely packed, and this is what I was referring to. There's at least 5 or 6 different routes to take from the observatory to the central area on the map. And with jetpack units, those routes can be expanded and connected in a variety of different ways. Near this area is the Ruins command post. The debris of some sort of structure provides cover, while offering a line of sight towards both the area at the front of the keep and the many passageways leading out of the observatory. In fact, I noticed this particular wall hosted a few arrow slits, where snipers had set up to shoot down any unsuspecting targets. They offer a great deal of coverage while also leaving enough room for return fire to take the snipers out. The opposite side of the map is a bit less complicated. In fact, a large portion outside of the courtyard command post is just open ground. Now, a large tower hosts the CP overlooking this field, as well as the rest of the map. To the north is another command post called the Terrace. Really not much to say about this portion. It is far less complex than the opposite side of the Citadel, but that's not a bad thing, still having a few simple paths and stairwells. These areas all converge on the Keep, the focal point of this map. Situated dead center, everything flows either into or out of the Keep. It's a large structure, with several stairwells spilling out into the various other portions of the map. A great deal of fighting occurs at its front entrance for this reason. It's the natural endpoint when taking any route through the level, and therefore this command post is highly contested. Whoever holds it also holds some level of control over the match. Before the keep is one more area of note. A bridge leading to a small balcony known as the Watch, where yet another command post sits. The Watch is aptly named due to it serving as yet another excellent angle for the front part of the Citadel, but it also sits over the edge of the mountain. One more detail I haven't mentioned is the cliffside running along the edge of the map. On the Xbox version of this game, you are unable to see the bottom. It simply stretches down into the fog below. Again, I love the mystery that this invites, that sense of fear. You wonder what could be down there. And if you're like me, you probably imagine the harbor being below you. It's not hard to think that it sits at the foot of this mountain with the Citadel on top of it. However, that is not the case. Canonically, anyways. The loading screen map shows these two locales to be quite a distance from each other, and there is other ways you can see the bottom. Sadly, the Classic Collection strikes again, as this map is stripped of the fog and you can very clearly see the ground below you. It's not even that far down, really killing the mystique of a fortress secluded hundreds of feet in the air. However, the Classic Collection's choice does fix one little visual hiccup on the older version. While playing on console, the map takes place at night, with stars being visible in the skybox. However, this same skybox is the texture the draw distance uses, which means there were a few times that I looked out and saw stars, only to zoom in and then suddenly see a building before me. A building that would be blocking any stars that would be there. In fact, the way the fog snaps away with virtually no subtlety did get a bit distracting at times. Going from seeing nothing to seeing everything in detail is just one of those trade-offs. While on the topic of the map's mysterious nature, there is one section I have neglected to bring up so far. Tucked away deep into the back of the map are hallways leading into the Citadel itself. Lit only by hanging braziers, they lead to a central chamber housing the crypt. It's a large room with a tomb sitting in its center. Taking a closer look shows that not only has this mausoleum been broken open, but there's no body inside. The victim of grave robbers? Or is there perhaps a corpse wandering these halls? This area always reminded me of Balin's tomb from Lord of the Rings. The comparison stood out to me even more since I am in the middle of playing the Fellowship of the Ring video game. Yeah, it's a shameless plug for other videos I have on the channel. What are you going to do about it? By the way, playlist in the description. The crypt and its surrounding hallways link the back portions of the map, connecting the observatory to the terrace. While not a frequent site of battle, owning the crypt can provide you with another good flanking opportunity if your opponent owns either of these command posts. Now, in that vague checklist for a great Battlefront map, I specifically listed multiple ways of engaging in the fight. For Bespin platforms and Rhen Var Harbor, I pointed to the various vehicles as the primary way of fighting in a different manner. But due to being a purely infantry map, you might think that I would dock Citadel points due to its lack of tanks or starfighters. But that's just not true. Sometimes less is more. And while there are no vehicles on this map, there doesn't need to be, because so much variety is available to you just through playing with different infantry units. In fact, there may not be another map in this game so well suited for every class quite like Rhen Var Citadel is. There is no bad option unit-wise. The standard soldier can quickly adapt to the various arenas on this map, quickly going from close-range engagements to long-range ones with no problem. The heavy can hide mines along the sharp turns and stairways, as well as hold choke points where several enemies pass through a narrow passage. Pilots can use their grenade launchers and shotguns to quickly end a fight in a confined corridor. Special units can adapt too. The Wookiee Warrior, the Droideka, the Dark Trooper all have great close-range killing options. And the jetpacks of the clones and Dark Troopers create new movement options unavailable to anyone else. But there is one class who truly thrives on this map, and that is the Marksman. There are so many areas that make for fantastic sniper nests that cover huge portions of the map. There are the gun holes in the walls overlooking the observatory paths. Or you could alternatively turn around and shoot towards the front of the keep and the watch. Speaking of the watch, it too provides a vantage point to snipe from, overlooking basically the entire front half of this map, along with the open-air courtyard and the small path running underneath it. Speaking of, I've neglected to mention it, but there is a small path along the cliff edge right in front of the Citadel. It runs underneath the bridge that leads to the watch. Nothing much typically happens here, but it is a very cool inclusion. And then finally, the sniper's nest to end all others, the Courtyard Tower. This structure is massive in size and provides a staircase right to the top, where you can take any high-caliber rifle and absolutely dominate the battle. From here, you have a clear, unobstructed view of everything from the Ruins command post straight to the terrace, along with anything in between. Going prone gives you enough cover to remain a fairly hidden target, and you could spend the whole match up here, with a line of sight so clear that you can even shoot into a few of the open hallways leading out of the crypt. It is a marksman's paradise, and by far the best way to get an early lead. But as we've done before, let's talk about what this citadel is. Who owned this fortress high in the mountains? Well, a part of me always assumed it had something to do with Ulic Queldrama, perhaps a Sith base of some kind. The mystifying nature of this place always struck me, perhaps due to a darker presence. But I was wrong, because this is not a Sith temple, but rather the resting place of a Jedi hero. You probably noticed the large statue of a hooded figure at the entrance to the keep. It's very reminiscent of statues seen at the Jedi Temple, as well as other Jedi locales of note. But how do we know it's a Jedi? I mean, hooded figures watch over the Valley of the Sith on Korriban, after all. Well, in the back of the keep lies a destroyed statue, situated under an archway, at the top of which are some Arabesh writing, which translates to say, Ross Mislewick, to protect and serve the universe as a noble Jedi. It seems this citadel is a memorial, or perhaps once was the home to this Jedi Knight. Looking at the names of the command posts, this seems to be less of a stronghold and more of a sanctuary, with locations like a terrace, a courtyard, an observatory. Now it feels less like an imposing castle and more like the refuge of a scholar. Logically, it's not hard to imagine the crypt is none other than Ross's tomb, which still makes me wonder about his remains, but maybe he became one with the Force. For literal decades now, I have played this game and never knew about this plaque and the lore it adds to the map. Before ending, let's go over a few pieces of trivia about these two locations. First off, both Rhen Var maps were two of the ones brought back over into Battlefront 2 thanks to the Xbox Live patch. While the Citadel remains relatively unchanged, Rhen Var Harbor saw several tweaks to its design. Firstly, the entrance and exit to the ice caves were given these doorways. While it helps to make the path stand out, it also makes these feel less like natural formations and more like a man-made route. The open field saw a drastic redesign. No longer is the area a flat sheet of ice. Far more mountains were added, making this seem more like the bottom of a valley. Many hills were also added as well, giving this section an entirely different terrain. Now, while I still prefer the flat of the OG console version, this does look nice. Other than that, the map is mostly the same. The wiki does state that some new pillars were added around the lighthouse, and some vehicles were updated with the new game. I do gotta say, I like the new icy twilight blue the map seems to have, seeming to now take place at night. Some of the rendering fog still exists, even in the Classic Collection version, so the map still retains that mystique that I like so much about it. Rhen Var shows up in both campaigns. During the Clone Wars, a squad of clones assaults the harbor. This mission actually is canonically part of the same battle seen in the Clone Wars video games, when Obi-Wan retakes the planet. On the Imperial side of things, the Citadel was converted into a listening post, used to track rebel movements. In Galactic Conquest, actually, hold up, let me say that right.
In Galactic Conquest,
Rhen Var's planetary bonus is orbital sensors, which may be a reference to the listening post mentioned back in the Imperial campaign. It's either a consistent decision or a great coincidence. Now, even if they are not your all-time favorite maps, I think everyone who has played Battlefront distinctly remembers Rhen Var. Not only is each map visually striking, offering a snowy biome only seen one other place in the game, but this map shows off a location not seen in the Star Wars movies. Every other planet was somewhere seen in one of the mainline films. The only technical exception being Kashyyyk, but even that was a well-known planet and had shown up in the holiday special. But Rhen Var was new, unfamiliar. As I've alluded to before, it has this unexplainable aura surrounding it, and that sense of enigma stands out amidst all the expected and known elements of other maps. But mystery only gets you so far. And Rhen Var delivers on having solid map design that accomplishes two very different things. On Rhen Var Harbor, you have a Battlefront that feels so grand, having this attacker-defender dynamic. It offers a straightforward battle with massive war machines and defensive structures. It also offers the quieter route of subterfuge, sneaking through a cavernous glacier to catch your enemies by surprise. Now contrasting this is the far simpler but equally effective Citadel, which offers a pure shootout amongst old ruins of a Jedi base. There's also a verticality to the combat on the Citadel that I didn't mention as much as I should have, but the various levels and pathways of the old fort offer combat in a place that has likely seen war over a millennium. Wars with different sides, but all coming back to that core struggle of good versus evil. I really can't point to any real flaws in these maps. They each set out to do different things, and in my opinion, each of them succeed in their respective fields. One problem I thought I was going to have was confined fighting at the Citadel. I remember in a lot of my past battles on this map were limited to that area at the entrance of the keep. I was worried this would happen while playing, all the fighting restricted to this one area while the rest of the map went neglected. And yet I found the opposite to be true. While yes, the keep is a highly trafficked area, each new game played out differently, with each side holding different points on the map, and the battle ever evolving and changing as command posts regularly changed hands. This kept the fighting fresh and mobile. It also was a great contrast to the harbor where the opposite was true, with a lot of the command posts being very stagnant. With no major issues, it's hard to point to anything but nitpicks that could only marginally improve each of these maps. And with that being said, the Rhen Var maps of Star Wars Battlefront succeed in letting you live out two distinct types of battles in a galaxy far, far away, being among some of the finest maps in this game's offering. What do you think of the two Rhen Var maps? Do you prefer Harbor or Citadel? Are they your favorite maps? Do you think they're actually overrated? Did you also feel that sense of mystery while playing on them, or was that just me? Like I said, I think this is going to become a fairly regular series of mine if this video does about as well as the last one did. As I said, if we hit 500 likes, I will continue and for sure keep making more map analysis videos on this game. Although, I think in the future I'm just gonna stick to one map per video, to save me a little bit of time at least. Watch my video on Bespin platforms if you haven't already. Or check out some of the other analysis videos I've done if you enjoy that type of thing. I also mainly just play games in a very fast-paced, quickly cut, comedic fashion. I'm currently in the middle of playing Knights of the Old Republic and about to wrap up Vivendi's Fellowship of the Ring video game, if you want to check those out as well. I'll include links to all of these in the description below, but in the meantime, stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.